welcome back to Sandy Trail. We are in the second half of episode 1. We're going to show and talk about the scene where Charlotte went bathing with Clara, but there are far more important scenes in the second half that I want to talk about with you. We should get started with this one first.
Nothing to worry about, really.
Nothing to worry about. No word from him, and the ball only a day away.
You know Sydney Parker always leaves everything until the last minute, dear.
But does he realise the paramount importance of the occasion?
Is it really so very important?
Of course it is. Of course it is. If Sanditon's first ball is not a triumph, I fear Lady Denham will withdraw her investment.
It's a bit different for Charlotte to walk into the dining room, right? And the table is set, the food is on the table, and the Parkers already have a household staff that help them around the house. So Charlotte just like casually walking into just a normal morning breakfast with the family and the parents arguing over something, and she just did not say anything, and she just let the conversation continue. But she probably already starting to make her first impression of Sydney, especially when Tom discussed how Sydney is not communicating with him. He is basically MIA. He's not in Sanditon yet, and the ball is literally the next day, and Tom is stressing out.
My husband has 2 wives, Charlotte. Myself and Sanditon. And I'd hesitate to say which of us he cares for the most. Marriage is very much about making allowances for the other person, as I'm sure you'll find out for yourself. I had no idea what I was letting myself in for when I fell in love with Tom.
There's something thrilling about that.
Thrilling, but exhausting.
Finding love in Sanditon is like literally the last thing on her bucket list. Charlotte just wants to go on an adventure and travel and explore the world outside of her hometown. I wanted to bring this scene up because it shows the relationship that Mary and Tom have, that complexity that they have within the relationship, and marriage is not always happy stories. There's always an argument that will happen, and disagreement, and troubles, and the highs and the lows in the relationship. But I do want to say, though, that what Mary told Charlotte in the scene about marriage, I think it will play a role in the back of Charlotte's mind as she navigates through her love life in season 1.
I saw Lady D haranguing you the other day. What was she talking about?
Oh, the money, mostly.
Oh, and how we're scheming to get it, no doubt. She talks of little else. She's a mean, miserly old monster.
Esther is a very complex character, and I really like the highs and the lows that she goes through in season 1 and season 2. It was a bit weird and interesting how Esther just came up to Mary and Charlotte and like, hey, can I talk to you, Charlotte? And now here we are. We see these two actually have a solid conversation alone, and Charlotte is still new to the town. She's still meeting new people and trying to understand their personality.
Did she mention her niece, Clara Brereton?
She told me she was very poor indeed.
Oh, she's in no need of your sympathy. She does well enough basking in the warmth and luxury of Sanditon House, while Edward and I shiver in the damp and cold of Denham Place. Oh, she succeeds in her object, which is, of course, to have everything for herself. I swear I will poison her.
I'm sure you don't mean that.
Esther, she is tough as she is. She's like Lady Denham, but I think the way that she is very upfront about Clara in this scene is not only a wake-up call to Charlotte, but basically just to be on guard. Like, you can't trust anyone in Sanditon. Even though Esther trying to look like she is innocent, she have her own backstory that Charlotte doesn't know just yet. So Charlotte just like okay, like, you say that against Clara, but personally, Charlotte, like, me and Clara are just good so far. I mean, she seemed nice. I'm a nice person. We seem to get along and starting the possible new friendship together. And Esther saying these things about Clara, Charlotte is like a little bit naive, like, okay, like, I don't know if I should believe you or not. So this is like the moment where Charlotte should start thinking twice and be like, hey, you meet these new people, like, you can't trust anyone. Like your dad said, like, be careful. Like, be careful for everything and for everyone that you meet in Sanditon. You just can't trust people. That's like one of the common sense. Like, you can't trust anyone.
And your host?
I'm very fond of them already.
Mr. Tom Parker is a monomaniac who is well on the way to ruining himself and his family with his crazy schemes.
You don't really think that? I think his ideas are admirable.
You wait till he bankrupts himself. I have nothing against his wife. Indeed, I feel very sorry for her.
You can sense it. Like, she tried to be nice, but at the same time, she's just very upfront and very rude in a way that she gossip about these people. But on the good side, Charlotte can get both sides of the story, if that makes sense. If I was Charlotte, I'd be like, okay, I need to have my guards up against all these people, including Esther. But what Esther said, though, about the Parker family, Tom, hey, you never know, right? Charlotte doesn't know the whole story about who Tom is and his businesses and who he is as a businessman and as a family man. And then Mary, the way that Esther talked about Mary, just like she like hid in the shadows and she doesn't know much or don't know the whole story behind Tom and building the town and the money, the investment. Mary's like, why are you freaking out? When she said at the breakfast at the table, and Tom is just getting stressed over Sydney appearing late in town. He needs to be in Sanditon before the ball starts. So Charlotte, you know, just like a bit naive, like they seem like a great family, but Esther's just trying to tell her, not really directly, but kind of like slipping into Charlotte, like, hey, like, they seem nice, but you don't know the whole story. And Esther seemed to be in town in Sanditon longer than Charlotte is, right? So she knows more of what is going on and what happened before Charlotte came into town.
His brother Arthur is a buffoon, as you've no doubt discovered for yourself, and Sydney.
I've not yet had the pleasure.
Very unstable and unreliable. I advise you to be on your guard.
Thank you.
And then Arthur, of course, like, most people, I think, is annoyed by Arthur and his jolly attitude and his happiness. Everyone else just, like, have those serious looks on the face, but Arthur just like to have fun and have conversation with anyone that come up to him. Sydney. Esther mentioned about Sydney, and it's interesting. Like, Tom mentioned Sydney, like, in a positive way, and then Esther, like, well, I would keep your guards up if you're around Sydney. And Charlotte, like, okay, like, what's that supposed to mean? So she had this, like, pros and cons of Sydney. Like, the Parker family adores Sydney, but Esther, like, be careful. Like, I think she said he's unstable, unreliable. What does that mean? Is he like that in all areas of his life? Or did she mean that Sydney is a unstable man when it comes to relationship with women?
All in all, I think you'll come to regret ever setting foot in Sanditon. I know I do.
Last but not least, sorry for that very short clip, Esther said that, and it made me think, like, okay, like, why did she regret coming into Sanditon? and there's something going on with Esther, and it would be related to her brother Edward, and then Clara. There's something going on between Clara and Edward too. So I wonder if there's like a triangle conflict between those three people, and of course, getting the money, the inheritance from Lady Denham, just in case if she passes away, like who's gonna get her estate, who's gonna get the money, and these three people are competing for that position to receive the money and the inheritance and the estates of Lady Denham after she passes away. So why is she not happy to be in Sanditon? That's another mystery that is coming up into the picture here. And then Charlotte, like, okay, why would I regret coming here? Like, this is like the best thing that happened to me. Like, everything is going well, and I'm meeting new people, and Charlotte doesn't really trust Esther in this moment. Not really. But down the road, she might trust what Esther said. She might not. But basically, it's just Esther giving her a warning sign. And she's not going to tell Charlotte the whole story. Like, hey, like, here's a little clue. Hopefully you don't get hurt or you don't get your heart broken. Just protect yourself in the town because anything can happen.
It's Tom's brother, Sidney.
Mary.
If you never watched this show, I try not to spoil it too far ahead, but this is really important. The scene, she finally meets Sidney, and he made it just in time the day before the ball, and Mary was so excited, and Charlotte like joined in the excitement, but at the same time she's just like a bit nervous because she only seen him in that portrait, and she's just wondering, hey, I seen him in that picture, like what's he gonna look like in real human body, like a real person right in front of me. So Charlotte just like, okay, like who is Cindy? Like, is he nice? Is he a gentleman? We shall see.
Well met. You made?
Sidney, this is Miss Charlotte Hayward, our guest at Trafalgar House.
Miss,
Hayward.
Hayward.
Are you on your way to Trafalgar House? You'll stay with us, of course.
No, I've taken rooms at the hotel. Some friends are joining me there.
And of course he greeted Mary because he already knew Mary, and he immediately, his first impression of Charlotte is she a new maid? And Charlotte just like, what? And I think the way she presented herself and probably her outfit made him assume that she was a new maid. Nothing like, Esther that lives in a higher class family. So Charlotte just like, oh great, he already see me as a new maid, like, okay. But Mary corrected him, and she is a guest at the Parker House for the summer. And it's really interesting though that he looked over to Charlotte and like, waited for her to to say her last name, and I thought that was like a bit not normal. I don't know, it's just like kind of weird for me. And I think he wanted her to say it. I think he wanted to hear her speak, but at the same time I think he also wanted her to introduce herself like formally, because at first she's just like quiet because Mary and Sidney were talking and she didn't want to barge into the conversation. And you can see like the sassiness that Charlotte started to have, and she's just like, who are you? Like looking at me and treating me like that.
And tomorrow evening is the famous ball, is it not?
Tom's been in such a state about it. You will do all you can to help him, won't you?
Tell him he has nothing to worry about, all is in hand. You off at Lady D's?
We are.
Then I won't keep you. Miss Hayward. Until later.
One thing I really noticed is that he glanced over Charlotte in near the end of the conversation before he left. And I think the other part of his first impression of Charlotte is that she is this beautiful and out of the blue woman that just, magically appeared in front of him next to Mary, because he didn't know about Charlotte coming, he didn't know about this new guest, and he had no idea who she is. And I think he was a little bit intrigued by Charlotte in the scene, and that's why he glanced over to her. And he just looked away quickly after that. And it's also interesting though that he have his eye contact mostly either on Mary or outward to the sea. I think the sea was next to them, over the cliffs. So he really didn't have a long or a confident stare at Charlotte when he having a conversation, well, mostly to Mary, but he did glance over to Charlotte a couple of times, and yeah, he's something else.
He is so good. He can be abrupt and inattentive like he was just now with you, but he has a good heart.
I'm glad to hear it.
Charlotte just kept looking at him and just I guess she's trying to figure him out and just make assumption of who he is. Is he a gentleman, or does he have this arrogance inside of him? Why did he wait until the day before the ball? Is he a type of guy that always run late and so forth? And he seemed like a type of guy that liked his own freedom. He's not even staying at his brother's house. He's staying at a different lodging with his friends, so he might be single. So it's just a lot of first impression and observing between Sydney and Charlotte in this scene. And I think that's gonna become more complex as we go on, because they will get to learn about each other, and there will definitely be some highs and lows with these two.
I worry about his own happiness. He's inclined not to think very highly of our sex. He's had some bruising experiences in the past. I should like to see him settled, but I fear it's not in his nature.
Mary told her more things about Sydney, and it's really funny though, how in this episode Charlotte meet a lot of people and she learned a lot about these new people, and she got some information on Sydney from Tom, and then from Esther, and now Mary. And Mary, what Mary just told her, that's some deep information, and I think it's good that Mary told her, because to herself, Charlotte can protect herself and keep her guards up. And I think she will have her wall up against Sydney. But she's the type of person that's very friendly, and she gives everyone a chance, and she believes in the good in everyone, whether you're a bad person or not, or what happened in your past. She believes in the good. So we'll see how she is when she had that time alone with Sydney later on this season. But for now, I think she's just in that zone, that state of mind of okay, he seemed rude, but maybe he is a nice guy. I shouldn't cross him out yet. I should give him the benefit of the doubt. Give him a chance to really show himself who he really is. And like Mary said, he might seem rude and arrogant to you, but he really have a good heart. And that's another mystery for Charlotte that she needs to figure out and we'll see if she will give Sydney a chance, and if there will be a friendship between Sydney and Charlotte in season 1. Mary and Charlotte walk toward Lady Denham's house, and Lady Denham had this big backyard, a big park in the back of her house, and they were walking through, and Charlotte saw Clara and Edward, and this is red flag, and this is the opposite of what Clara presented to Charlotte when they first met. She seemed poor, and she doesn't have much, and she seemed single, but now Charlotte seeing them like this, oh snap, what the heck is going on? And if I was Charlotte, I'd be start thinking of what Esther just talked about in the other scene that we saw earlier. So it's just okay, maybe Esther is right. There's always another side to every story and to every person. So Clara might seem like a nice person, but she is doing something that is not right. And in this case, she's hooking up with Edward, and it's just like a secret affair. And Charlotte did not want to see that at all. She's just oh boy, I already stumbled upon a secret affair, a secret relationship, and I just got into town, and yeah, it's not good.